in a world where cinema reigns supreme. Join us on an epic journey through the silver screen. Welcome to What's New with Stu, a movie review, with your host Dave Stewart, a video podcast where every frame tells a story. Get ready for insights, laughs, and film debates. From blockbusters to hidden gems, we've got it all covered. Lights, camera, action. It's time for What's New with Stu, a movie review. And now your host, David F. Stewart.
I'm going to be frank with you. You are smart. I know that you are great with numbers, but I just don't think you got it. As an executive, I see no value in you. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, what? Oh, God.
Take your seats, you're a little bitch.
Little words of the late great Benny Hill. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, all. Welcome to another episode of What's New with Stu, a movie review. I'm your host, Dave Stewart. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a film that was just released January 30th. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's one of the most entertaining films I've seen in a theater for a long time. Send Help, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, directed by Sam Raimi.
No help is coming. You just have to accept that this is how things are now. You ever hunt? I think I like it.
I was in a movie theater one day and I saw this poster, and it had a woman in the poster. It looked like she might have had blood on her face or dirt. It looked like she was holding some kind of weapon, hair all straggly. And I didn't know who the actress was at the time. And I'm thinking, oh, it looks like some kind of, violent blood splatter, kind of exploitation films, which if they're well done, I don't have a problem with. But I didn't take it seriously. My friend Mike says, you want to go see a movie? I said, sure. And he goes to Send Help. And right away, I knew nothing about it. I type in a little quick thing, and I read what it was about this couple getting stranded on a desert island, these two co-workers. And I said, oh, that's an interesting idea. And it starred Rachel McAdams. And it hit me, oh, that was Rachel McAdams in the poster. There's no way, in my opinion, you can look at that poster and tell it's Rachel McAdams. Now, for those of you who don't know who Rachel McAdams is, she got, I guess, her first big starring role was in the famous romantic comedy The Notebook with Ryan Gosling, and then The Wedding Crashers with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. And then, obviously, she's been in a lot of other movies. And then she got an Oscar nomination 10 years ago, in fact, for the movie Spotlight with Michael Keaton for Best Supporting Actress. So she's a very good actress, and she's been in a lot of hit films. I didn't see any scenes of it. I just read that quick synopsis that it was about a couple getting stranded, and I walked out of the theater with a big smile on my face, and I could not wait to do a review on this. This film has got something for everybody. Now, it's directed by Sam Raimi. Now, Sam Raimi, for those of you who don't know, is the creator of the Evil Dead films from the late 70s and the early 80s, which were as blood splatter, violent, but in a comic way, as any films you can think of. I mean, this was like, real gross out stuff, but it was kind of like a cult film hit, and he made a whole bunch of them. And then he also made the Spider-Man movies in the early 2000s with Tobey Maguire that, of course, were huge hits. And he made a movie, I think he came out in 2008, called Drag Me to Hell, which was a very good film, a horror movie with some comedy in it. And it was very, very well done. So with the right material, he's got that eye for this kind of thing. Because I'm not going to lie to you, this is an R-rated film. It's got violence.
Although I'm betting I am a much nicer boss than you ever would have been. Except for maybe this part.
It's got some gross moments, but they're done kind of in a comic way. Like, as you're watching the violence, you're kind of laughing. Because it's like kind of not... either, if you could say over the top, or however you wanted to say it, because it's just one of those films, kind of like with Quentin Tarantino movies too, where there's a lot of violence, but you're kind of laughing at the same time. But this is a very, very interesting character study between, two people that are very different. Now, Rachel McAdams, who's a very beautiful woman, and by the way, she's 47 years old. She does not look 47. I couldn't believe when I looked it up. She's 47 years in this movie. They really, made her more frumpy, made her, more homely, I guess you could say. There's a scene where she got food at the bottom of her lip, and one of the co-workers can't help but stare at the food, and he can't even listen to what she's saying. And a lot of it has to go to Rachel McAdams' performance, which, by the way, I'm going to say this right now. This, to me, is the best Rachel McAdams performance she's ever given. I mean, because this gives her an opportunity and really show an acting range here, even though this is a horror comedy film. But I've always said this before, women usually don't have a chance in either comedy or action movies, and this gives her both. I mean, when you think of the greatest action films that had a heroine, you know, a woman that was the lead, the first films that come to mind is Sigourney Weaver in the Alien films. She was even nominated for Best Actress in 1986. And, you know, Angelina Jolie in the Lara Croft movies comes to mind. And, of course, Uma Thurman in the Kill Bill films. Now, I'm sure I'm missing others, but let's be honest. A lot of times a woman is not given the lead role in an action film. And I've also said this about comedy, that they don't really get the opportunity to show their comedy chops in a Hollywood film. And McAdams has both given to her here, and she makes the most of it. But I think McAdams should get nominated for Best Actress. That's how good she is. It is not easy to do a performance like this, in my opinion. And Dylan O'Brien, who, on the top of my head, I don't know where else I've seen him, but he's very, very good, and he's also very, very funny. This is a very insightful film. There's moments in this movie, first they can't stand each other, or at least one can't stand the other, without giving too much away, but they have a kind of, you know, thought-provoking moments in this film where they kind of get to know each other, and oh wow, maybe this film will go in a different direction, and you think it will. And that's what I liked about the film, that I was never really sure, you know, what the characters were up to, what they were thinking. Now, by the way, I think this film has something for everybody. You know, a lot of comedians and people kid around that, you know, men like the action films, a lot of sex, and, you know, and the females want romance and thought-provoking messages. This film actually is a combination of a lot of these things in one movie where both men and women could take a lot out of it. I went with my wife, and she loved it. And our friends that came, Mike and his wife, loved it too. You know, you go into this film, you're thinking, oh, there's a villain and there's a good person, or, you know, the heroine. But you realize they both have good qualities and bad qualities. That I will say that much about the film. It's not exactly what you think. Rachel McAdams' character is not perfect. And you can, you know, side with Dylan O'Brien. You know, it's one of those characters where you can see, you know, she could drive somebody a little nuts, even though she's a hard worker and she probably got screwed over by the company and the boss in the beginning of the film. You know, she's got her own issues, and that is developed throughout the film.
Oh, Linda, before you go, I forgot to mention, I've received a few complaints about you.
Complaints?
Noxious odors.
It was very, very well done, with a great ending, by the way, which, you know, my wife goes, well, I could see that coming. I said, well, I didn't see it coming. I didn't know how this film was going to end. And that's usually, obviously, the best movies where you're not really sure. Just trust me when I say you will be very entertained by this movie. I highly recommend seeing Send Help.
I don't think we should ever leave here.
And I'm sure, hopefully, word of mouth, it'll make a lot of money. And the immortal words of the late, great Benny Hill. Good night, viewers. Good night, all. We'll see you next time, and we'll see you at the movies.